This is Kim Newlove, host of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Thank you for joining me for episode 97. If you're new to the show, welcome. I alternate solo shows and interview shows. The solo shows are about my career change from pharmacist to voice actor, and the interview shows feature a variety of people who use their voices to advocate, educate, or entertain. My website is thepharmacistvoice.com. Today's episode is an interview with Maureen Garrity. She's a pharmacist and the Competency Assessment Director for NABP, the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy. To learn more about NABP, visit nabp.pharmacy. Here's my interview with Maureen. Hi, Maureen. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Kim. Thanks for inviting me. This is a great opportunity for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. I have had a question from some listeners, and I thought I'd reach out to you today to record a podcast so they could get all the answers to their question. And that question is, how do you get a U.S. pharmacist license when you're a foreign pharmacy graduate?
Everything you need to know about applying to be a pharmacist in the U.S. if you're foreign educated can be found on the NABP website, and that would be at nabp.pharmacy. And on that website is the FPGEC Candidate Bulletin. Let me first start off by saying FPGEC. You're going to hear a lot of acronyms, so my apologies in advance. But the FPGEC stands for Foreign Pharmacy Graduate Equivalency Committee. So the FPGEC is a committee that looks at pharmacists' credentials to make sure that they meet the requirements to then go on to practice pharmacy in the U.S. So I'll just briefly talk about those requirements. The first one being a candidate has to fill out the application. Application asks for all kinds of demographic information, history, and all that sort of thing. What's really important as far as documentation is, one, their educational history. So NABP requires a 5-year pharmacy program. So you have to have graduated from a 5-year program. If it hasn't been a 5-year program, likely you're not going to be accepted into the program. The second is licensure. So we want to make sure that anyone who's applying to this program has practiced pharmacy in some country outside the United States. So to prove that, we look for a licensure or registration, and some countries require both. The licensure must be an unrestricted license, and I can go into what that means in a few minutes, but there's your education, there's their licensure to practice pharmacy in their country, any country outside the United States, and then there's the test of the English language as a second language. It's the test of English as a foreign language, or TOEFL, as everyone refers to it. So the TOEFL you must have a passing score on the TOEFL as part of your application. Once you apply, your documents are reviewed. There are no deficiencies in your documentation, and you're accepted to the program. Typically, we do give you 2 years from the time you apply till the time you need to be accepted or your application expires. During that 2-year time frame, we will look at your deficiencies, ask you to resubmit documentation or whatever during that review process. So we strongly recommend anyone applying to the program have your documentations in advance of the application to make it nice and smooth and make it run very quickly. So once the candidate is accepted into the program, then they have to take the Foreign Pharmacy Graduate Equivalency Examination, more commonly referred to as the FPGEE. Take that exam, and once you pass that exam, you've been accepted to the program, you've passed this exam, you become a certified pharmacist. As an FPGEC certified pharmacist, you are treated just like any other pharmacy graduate from the U.S. Once you're certified, you can take the NAPLEX and the MPJE. The NAPLEX is the North American Pharmacist Licensure Examination. The MPJE is the Multistate Jurisprudence examination. Sorry, the MPJE. That's the law exam. Pharmacy the NAPLEX is the pharmacy practice. The MPJE is the law exam. So you take the law exam specific to a state. So you pass those 2 exams, you get licensed in the United States.
Very good. That sounds familiar. I actually took both of those myself back in 2001. I am an Ohio licensed pharmacist. And where are you licensed?
I'm licensed in the state of Illinois.
I did not realize until we started talking that the NABP is in Illinois.
Yes, NABP is in Mount Prospect, Illinois, which is a northwest suburban from Chicago. So northwest of Chicago.
Can you tell me a little bit about your role with the NABP and what the NABP does?
Sure. So I'm the Director of Competency Assessment, and competency assessment is a fancy term for all things examinations. So I'm responsible for all the examinations coming out of NABP. NABP being the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy. We do not license pharmacists. We just we provide the examinations for the individual state boards of pharmacy to determine licensure. So NABP, it's the nonprofit association, and our mission is to protect the public health. And so we provide a lot of programs that promote safe pharmacy practice and for the benefit of consumers.
Very good. I'm glad you exist. You're keeping the patients of the U.S. safe.
NABP takes that very seriously.
Okay, you talked a lot about all these different requirements. Does it ever happen that somebody does not qualify for the FPGEC?
So yes, there's a few reasons why someone wouldn't qualify. The first usually is their education is not a 5-year, or it's not a program for pharmacy practice. Sometimes it's like pharmaceutical sciences or pharmacognosy or pharmacology, similar to our PhD programs in the U.S. So those usually don't qualify. Another reason might be especially probably the biggest reason is their licensure, or I should say lack thereof, an unrestricted license. So what is an unrestricted license? Which means that they're free to work anywhere in that country in the practice of pharmacy. So a restricted license would be they are only allowed to work in a certain area or a certain pharmacy. Typically, that's given to new graduates. I can give you another example for someone who, let's say they're born in Iraq, but went to school in Jordan. Jordan only licenses their own citizens. You have to be a citizen of Jordan in order to get a license there. So that person from Iraq would not be able to get an unrestricted license in Jordan. So they would have to get a license to practice, an unrestricted license in any other country. Jordan is just not going to happen. So any other country is okay. Doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be where you went to school. All we're really worried about or concerned about is that you have practiced pharmacy in some country. Some country has deemed you qualified to practice pharmacy in their country. Another example of a restricted license would be like there are some countries that will pay for your education. Great. But in return, you have to do some service for the country, whether it is working in a specific pharmacy, or maybe in an underserved area of the country, or whatever that country requirements are. They usually restrict your license until you have completed the requirements that they have for that educational experience. Those are probably the biggest reasons why someone does not qualify for the program. But I'd like to add something, if you don't mind.
Sure.
That if, let's say they don't qualify, but pharmacy is their passion, they went to school for pharmacy, that's their love, that's what they want to do, and they want to do it in the United States. The alternative would be, if you don't have a license, obviously go get a license in another country. And if that's not a possibility for whatever reason, there's always education in the United States. So most pharmacy schools will take credit based on your educational experience and apply that so that you can be more of an advanced entry level pharmacy student. There are programs in the United States, I'm so sorry to keep going, but there are several programs in the United States that are not appropriate, that are not for licensure education. And that would be, for example, a post-BS PharmD. Post-BS PharmD say that if you are a licensed pharmacist in the U.S., and you have a BS in pharmacy, and now you want to get a PharmD. That's what that program's for. But that is for someone that is not a for licensure education in terms of the boards of pharmacy requirements. There's also an international program, and the international program is really for pharmacists to earn their PharmD but practice again in their own native country. It's not meant to be considered like the entry-level ACPE accredited programs in the United States. So my point being that if you want to get an education in the United States for licensure, make sure you take an entry-level pharmacy program.
So they'd be looking at a 6-year or an 8-year education, is that right?
Well, typically it's 3 to 4 years for pharmacy school because they will have already had a degree in another country. The credits that they've earned with that degree will probably apply, and they will probably get a more advanced standing in a 3 or 4 year program.
Got it. By the time you're out of pharmacy school in a foreign country, you're an adult. You're probably looking at getting married, having kids. So going back to school is a serious
commitment.
Challenge. Yes, a serious challenge, big commitment. So I just wanted to put that out there because timelines, people like timelines. How long is this going to take me? And you just pointed it out. It's probably not going to be 6 or 8. It's going to be at least 3 to 4, though.
Yes.
Okay. Well, one of the other requirements that you talked about earlier was the TOEFL test, the test of English as a foreign language. Can you talk a little bit about the requirements for that? What all's involved?
Sure. So the TOEFL, passing a TOEFL exam, the TOEFL expires after 2 years. So make sure that if you're taking the TOEFL, you take it recently so that the score is not expired. But the TOEFL, our requirements for TOEFL passing score is a little higher than most, like say a university in the United States. I'm a foreigner and I'm applying to a university in the United States. Their requirements are a little lower than ours. And the reason might be because if you're going to school in the United States, you're going to have faculty and mentors helping you through for the next 4 years to improve on your communication skills and your language perfection of your language. Whereas a foreign pharmacist, once you are certified and you take the NAPLEX and the MPJE, you're going straight into pharmacy practice. So because communication is so critical to the pharmacy practice, reading, writing, speaking, listening, all important. You get let's say, for example, you get a patient or a mother of a patient who has a very serious illness. They're overwhelmed with so much going on with their child that they need to make sure that they are well informed by the pharmacist on how to use that medication. What's that medication for? Why is it important to take? How do I take it? What are the drug interactions? What are the drug-food interactions? All kinds of information that they need to be able to clearly understand. There's physicians giving a prescription over the phone. You want to make sure that you can understand what that physician is saying. Pretty critical, especially when drugs can sound alike. There's soap notes that have to be written. There's package inserts that need to be read. So communication is critical, and that is why our passing scores are a little higher than, say, other university entry-level TOEFL requirements.
Well, that makes sense. Maureen, how would somebody know if they're not qualified, not just with the TOEFL, but for any reason?
So when you apply, you create an EProfile with NABP, and that all pharmacists have an EProfile. And so candidates for the Foreign Pharmacy Program also will have an EProfile. And when they are in that EProfile, we have a list of all of the required documentation. And as a candidate, I can see, did NABP receive my document? Is it under review? What is the status of my application? What is the status of the review of each document? So it's very important for candidates to constantly go back to their profile and view their statuses. But also we send an email when their status has changed. So there's lots of different ways of communicating. We are communicating with our candidates.
Give me a timeline. I know that the month of May is important for U.S. pharmacy grads because our students start graduating in May and June, and they are waiting for their authorization to test so they can take their NAPLEX and their MPJE. Is May important to foreign pharmacy grads also?
So May is important because it's typically in May that the registration opens for the October FPGEE, the exam. So the FPGEE is offered once a year, and that's in October. It's an event-based exam. It's on a specific date in October, and so we have seats reserved at the Pearson VUE testing centers for that date specifically for our foreign educated pharmacist candidates. So in May, usually the registration opens. People who have been accepted to the FPGEC program can take or register for that exam. Of course, it's first come, first serve. So lots of foreign pharmacists are very anxious to be accepted into the program so that they can register for that exam. And the exam registration typically closes in September, about a month before the exam date. And that's because there has to be some time for scheduling with Pearson VUE. So Pearson VUE says, after a certain period of time, they're not going to accept any more registrations for the exam. Also, it gives us time at NABP because every candidate who's ready to take that exam is given what we call a FIC card. And the FIC card is an ID card that we print that has the demographics of the candidate, their photo, and it's got the NABP logo on it, and it is mailed to all candidates. And Pearson VUE looks for that FIC card. So you have to have your government-issued ID and the FIC card to be allowed into the testing center to take their test. So it's a very important piece of identification, and we want to allow enough time to get those FIC cards to the candidates.
There's a lot to do, I must say. Now, do you have any passage rates that you could share with me? I mean, how many people are successful with this process?
It typically, on the first try, it's about 57 to 60% pass the exam on their first try. Some of them have several attempts that we give a lifetime of 5 attempts to pass the exam.
Those odds aren't terrible. It's just, a lot of work.
It's not terrible. It's completely doable.
And it sounds like once they pass that FPGEE, then they get their authorization to test for the NAPLEX and the MPJE, right?
So they are qualified to take the NAPLEX and MPJE. So they would have to apply for a pharmacy license in a state that they want to practice, follow that state's requirements for licensure, and that state will look to see, you're foreign educated, do you have the FPGEC certification? And with that FPGEC certification, they are treated just like a graduate of the U.S. school.
Now, back when I went to pharmacy school from 96 to 01, once I graduated, I took a review course. Is there anything that NABP offers in the form of a review course or a pretest or anything like that?
Yes, NABP does offer a practice exam or a pre-exam for all of our exams, for the FPGEE, for the NAPLEX, and for the MPJE. And we did learn, or we've done some research and found that those who take the pre-exam are more likely to and pass are more likely to pass the actual exam. And probably some of the reasons are those questions that appear on these practice exams are real test questions, or at one time were real test questions. They were actually on that FPGEE, or they were on the NAPLEX or the MPJE at some time. So it's important to take those exams. It gives you a really good idea. It gives you the feeling of how that exam is going to look. The navigation features are exactly the same as you would if you were in a Pearson VUE testing center. And of course, the questions are similar to what you will experience when you take the real exam. So I highly recommend it.
The exam is long. If I remember, it took 4 hours or something like that. Is it still that long?
It still is.
The NAPLEX, anyway.
Yes. Yes. The FPGE is pretty lengthy too.
Wow. Wow. Well, I think that is definitely an advantage to have some sort of a preparation test. How can somebody find that?
When they create their e-profile, they will, one of their options for purchasing is for a pre-exam. So you'll find it right on your e-profile. So just sign in and look for that exam. And it's 24/7. Whenever you want to take it, once you purchase it, you have a certain period. You have 7 days to actually finish it, but you can do it at any time, day or night.
Now, the next thing I want to talk about is assuming we've got a foreign pharmacy grad, they pass the FPGEE, they pass the NAPLEX, they pass the MPJE, they're licensed, they can practice in the US. Hooray. What's the job market like? I have heard a rumor that there are too many pharmacists and not enough jobs. Can I get your comments on that?
I hear the same thing, but I guess it depends on what you refer to as a pharmacy job, because I do know that I think it's the Bureau of Labor Statistics says about 57% of pharmacists work in retail or community service, and like maybe 26% practice in hospital or clinical or some type of home health care. If you're looking for one of these jobs, I'm guessing then, yes, there probably is a limited job market. But pharmacists work in a lot of areas that are not retail or hospital. And, these the non-traditional pharmacy practices. I mean, look, you're doing a podcast. I work for NABP. We're both pharmacists, not working in those areas. I've had a history of working a lot of jobs that were non-traditional. I worked in pharma for many years, and even in pharma, there were pharmacists working in research and development. There were scientific liaisons. There were quality assurance, regulatory affairs, marketing. There were pharmacists in let's see, poison control centers, drug information specialists, educators, mail order pharmacy consultants, online pharmacists, nuclear pharmacists. I can go on and on. Even medical writers. There's lots of opportunity for pharmacists that are not the traditional jobs. So I mean, I have several siblings who are pharmacists, and none of them work in a traditional pharmacy. One of them actually is a fireman and a pharmacist. So how did that happen? He wanted to be a fireman. His older brother talked him out of it, told him to be a pharmacist, which he did, and he loved it. Met his wife in pharmacy school, but he still wanted to be a fireman, so he went on to be a fireman, and now he's a fireman, and on his days off, he's a pharmacist. So combination, but the possibilities are endless.
I like that. That's a good combination, going for your passion, but also going for something that was recommended by somebody he listened to. So, we do what we can. Now, what would you say about somebody who is maybe looking at a job, but they're afraid that there are too many applicants? I have heard another rumor where there are maybe 20 applicants for one single job. Have you heard that rumor? Can I get your comments on that?
I guess it would be depending on the job. So if it's retail, I would probably agree with you. But I would say if I'm looking for a job, I strongly recommend a good network of pharmacist friends. And to increase your network, I would join some associations or organizations and network among the other members, because I guarantee you, you're going to hear about a job from somebody in your network long before it's going to be posted somewhere for someone to apply to. Do never underestimate the benefit of a good network.
That's a good point. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's one of the benefits I've found in joining LinkedIn. I've found a tribe, people that support me, offer things to me when I don't even ask. Hey, have you heard about this? I appreciate that. For anybody listening, thank you. Now, what could you tell me are some advantages of being a foreign pharmacy grad?
I could think of quite a few, but the one that comes to mind mostly is their language skills. I mean, U.S. grads as a whole, and I'm generalizing, usually only speak English. But having another language skill is so important. I mean, there's so many opportunities for someone who speaks another language in pharma, especially a global company. or even a geographical area that's servicing a community of others that speak that same language. It's a huge benefit.
Now, pharmacists, whether they're looking for a new job or they're newly graduated or coming from overseas, what would you tell somebody about picking the right job for them?
I feel that, there's a lot of money to be made, especially right out of school. In retail or hospital, they offer like a lot of money right out of the bat. But I would not take a job for the money, because no matter how much money you make, it's never enough. You can make a lot of money and it just becomes never enough. You just adjust your lifestyle based on what kind of money you make. So get a job that you just love, something you have a lot of passion for. Then the money can always come. You can always adjust, but get a job that you're really passionate about, and then you will be happy. I did want to mention that I've worked with a lot of foreign educated pharmacists. I worked with a lot of them in pharma and in retail, and even here at NABP, we have one of our executive committee members who went through the FPGEC program, and she works for a board of pharmacy, and she's a big advocate of this program. And as there are many others. We have review committee members who are foreign pharmacy graduates. I'm meeting them everywhere, so there's plenty of opportunity.
Very good. You answered my questions beautifully, and I love the support you're showing for the pharmacy grads from overseas. I have gotten this question more times than I can count from people around the world. I don't know why they ask me. I'm a pharmacist, I'm a voice actor, I'm a podcast host, but I guess because I'm a public figure, they think, I'm just going to ask because I could use some help. For anybody out there who is a foreign pharmacy school grad looking to come to the U.S., Maureen is giving some fantastic information. Please share this podcast with anybody that might be able to use it. I will put the links that she has mentioned in the show notes. And Maureen, is there anything else you'd like to share as we wrap this up?
Well, I want to say pharmacists in general, doesn't matter what country you come from or where you were educated, whether it was the best school or a mediocre school, doesn't really matter. You've graduated, you're licensed, you're intelligent, you're motivated. We're a specialized profession. So I just want to say, I hope that you enjoy your profession as much as I do, and I would just wish you all well. And I'm here to support you. If you have any questions about the program, just contact us at NABP.
Very good. And the website one more time?
Is nabp.pharmacy. I feel like I don't have to spell that to this audience.
I should hope not. I think our audience is probably mostly pharmacists on this one. So check out nabp.pharmacy. Maureen, thank you so much for being on the Pharmacist Voice podcast. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks for inviting me, and thank you for bringing up this very important topic.
You are most welcome. Thank you for joining me for episode 97 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Congratulations to all of the 2021 pharmacy school graduates, and good luck to everyone on your licensure exams. Please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to subscribe and read the show notes. The acronyms and websites mentioned in this episode are in those show notes. Enjoy.